Hey, it's your Reverend Aegis here, and in this video I want to walk you through how to get the Apex Predator achievement, which is the Trifecta achievement in March of Sacrifices, meaning the no death, the speed run, and the hard mode all simultaneously. Now, I do have a confession to make, and that is that the footage from this video is actually two separate runs, because when we actually got Apex Predator, my recording device kept glitching out, and none of the boss fights were properly recorded. They kept getting cut off for whatever reason. So all the trash pulls and the first four bosses are from one run, and the hard mode is actually from another run. Regardless, our group is exactly the same, and our strategy was exactly the same, so even though this isn't our actual Apex Predator run, it's going to be explained exactly the same way anyway. For the no-death component of this first fight, the most important thing is that the tank holds Wirus Ursus, that's the sword and board boss, away from the rest of the group. That way the circles do not overlap. The other thing that you need to pay attention to as the tank is the heavy attack. It will kill you if you don't block or roll dodge it, so she does it every time she comes back from that shield charge. So as soon as that shield charge goes up, just make sure you're buffed up and are blocking or roll dodging that heavy attack. As far as the DPS go, all they need to really worry about is making sure they get the interrupt on that taking aim from the bow person, as that will be a one-shot on the DPS or the healer. Once the two are down, then everyone can focus on Wirus Ursus, and the fight is pretty quick, pretty easy, and pretty straightforward. While this fight finishes up, I want to go over the gearing that the support are wearing for this Trifecta run. I am wearing my ultimate Aegis build, which is Arcasis and Drake's Rush, and interestingly enough, we decided to have our healer also wear Arcasis, weapons and jewelry, combined with Master Architect. The reason why we wanted to do that was because we wanted to have a really high uptime on barriers for the final fight. The final fight can get a little hectic with everybody running around like crazy people, wolves nipping at you, and 4 giant werewolves running around, so us having really quick access to barriers was very important for us securing the Trifecta fairly easily. So again, we had a double Arcasis and a Drake's Rush strategy, so that ultimate generation was absolutely insane. The second boss fight here is pretty trivial. It's more of a just burn it down quickly and you'll avoid all of the mechanics. So as the tank, I'm just going to pick up all the lurchers and keep aggro on the boss, and our DPS are just going to do their thing, and before you know it, she is going to be dead. Even though they did nerf this dungeon a lot, the ad pulls tend to be no-death killers as well. Most importantly, the sea lurchers, when they do their giant AoE, everybody should block that so they don't die. Then we have ad pulls with Thunder Mauls and Assassins. The tank should always grab the Thunder Maul first, and then, if able to, chain in the Assassins. The Assassins will put a trapping bolt on somebody, pinning them, and making them susceptible to be easily killed, so that can be roll dodged, or it can be interrupted before they get that off. Because of our double Arcasis and Drake's Rush Ultimate Aegis Plus strategy, we can pretty much drop ultimates at will throughout the entire dungeon, which makes all of the ad pulls go incredibly fast. We don't hold on to the ultimates for any reason like we do with our other strategies, such as the Atomic Aegis strategy. So here, for that final trash pull for this boss, again, it's just a matter of getting that Lurcher, chaining in the Assassins, and ulti-dumping them. This boss here, of course, we use the cheese that everybody uses. We run out here so we can avoid all the mechanics of the fight, and we pretty much just burn him down. There's nothing really special to this, so that's all you gotta do. The DPS should just try to stay out of the big fire AoEs that he puts out, and of course the tank should block the heavies. When he leaps into the air, it's a really obvious growing AoE that appears on the ground, so everyone can just sidestep out of that. Again, this fight is incredibly easy because we are pulling him out here and avoiding all the mechanics that we would have had to deal with if we were in the room. To be honest, I have no idea what even happens in the room or how to do it, because why do it any other way than this? The trash pulls here are more of the same. Thunder Mauls, Assassins, and Lurchers are the priority for the tank to pick up. And again, we can ulti-dump at will, which is actually really nice for this speedrun component of this Trifecta, as the speedrun gets a little bit tight. You'll want to get to the final boss around minute 20, because the final hard mode can take a little long, depending on the RNG you get with where the traps are placed. Sometimes they'll be placed on poison land more frequently than you'd want them to, and you have to wait in order to do them. So again, you'll want to get there in about 20 minutes. That way you have enough time to get that hard mode done completely under that time frame. The fourth boss in March of Sacrifices, the Indrik Boss, Tarsier, is probably one of the top 3 most hated boss fights in this game, and for good reason, because Tarsier is an annoying little shitbag. Normally, I don't like when they nerf dungeons, because I think they're more fun when they're difficult, and I think they're more fun when people can't do them, because then I can say, haha, I'm better than you. But in this case, I am so glad they nerfed this one, because it went from really, really super annoying to just terribly extra annoying. So, pretty much all we're doing here is you have to go through these phases, of course, where you have to hit that little wisp 3 times, and then after you hit the wisp 3 times, the Indrik comes out of hiding. So what we do, we just make sure whenever somebody grabs the wisp, they call out their number, that way everyone's ready for the 3rd one when the Indrik comes back out. Now, one nice thing about the double Arcasis setup is you can actually pop potions when you're in the hunt phase and restore everybody's ultimate while we're busy doing nothing and wasting our time. So that's cool. We'll always have ultimates ready when Tarsier comes back out. Now, if you want to make this fight a little quicker, you can actually not interrupt Tarsier when she's doing the big AoE. Obviously, it's a little more dangerous, but if she gets stuck in that AoE animation for a long time, you have free range to just burn the crap out of it and not worry about any other mechanics like her running around or teleporting, which is why the boss is extra annoying in the first place. Now, the other thing during the phase when Tarsier is out is you will get those assassins that come out, and again, they throw the trapping bolts on people. So as the tank, what I like to do, I like to taunt them and chain them into me, that way I can always get the interrupt very easily on them, preventing any of our allies from getting the trapping bolt. One thing that is dangerous about doing that is if you're the tank, you may be paying too much attention to them, and it's kind of easy to lose track of that 15-second aggro on Tarsier, and you don't want to do that because Tarsier has a heavy attack that hits really hard that isn't telegraphed too well, and that means the DPS and healer may not be ready to roll dodge them if they're being targeted. So again, if you're doing the strategy where the tank grabs the butchers and interrupts like there, just make sure you don't lose aggro on Tarsier. There I just refresh it right when it expired. Now I do want to mention that this is of course not the only strategy to get the no death on this boss. This is just the one that I like to do because it allows your DPS to just stay on Tarsier. The other strategy of course is you can assign a DPS or 2 to actually kill the ads as they come up. And the other one, like I mentioned before, is you can just not interrupt Tarsier and burn her down quickly and actually end up skipping hunt phases to make it go a lot faster. So whatever works for you and your group, whatever you want to try, there are multiple different strategies for this boss. Alright, let's speed this up to 5 times speed because the rest of the fight is as boring as it looks and there's nothing new here. So we kill Tarsier, and then we have the final couple of ad pulls before the hard mode, and these ad pulls are actually easier than the previous ad pulls. Just make sure you crowd control and taunt things, because there are a couple of ads here that can one-shot your DPS and healers if they're not paying attention. So we go through all these ad pulls, and while we're going through the ad pulls, I want to talk about the MVP of the hard mode, and that is not a person, that is not a role, that is a skill, and that skill is Race Against Time from the Sijic line. Everybody needs to slot this skill. What does it do? Not only does it give you minor force, so it's cool for the DPS who are already running something to give them minor force, like Trap, so it replaces that, but it also gives you major expedition for 4 seconds, which is awesome, but most importantly, it removes all snares and immobilizations, and when you have it leveled up completely, it makes you immune to the snares for 2 seconds. So the hardest thing about this hard mode is when you go into the hunt phase, all of those wolves, they apply a snare to you every time they nip you. And that makes you super slow, and you have to roll dodge all the time, and it makes it really, really difficult to get the no-death. But guess what Race Against Time does? It pretty much gets rid of that entire mechanic, because if you get nipped, you just hit Race Against Time, you run away, you don't even need to sprint really, because you already have major expedition, and then you can't get snared again for 2 more seconds, so it allows you to escape anything and keep moving. It's super easy with Race Against Time. Now, if you're going for Apex Predator, you should know that the hunt phases occur at 80, 60, 40, and 20%. It's a soft lock, so you can usually push them a little past then. And once you get into the hunt phase, you should always stay off the land first, because you get the poison on the land mechanic always in the beginning of hunt phase in the hard mode, and then it goes to the lightning in the water. So it just alternates. So your group should be really good at knowing, hey, this is the time to stay off the land, this is the time to get out of the water, and of course you can also have somebody call it out as well. Another thing we like to do, because those dire wolves are pretty annoying even with race against time, occasionally we will stay on a trap. I'll put down a fear totem, they'll get feared, and I'll drop a colossus on them, and then we'll wall spam them to death. That way we don't have to deal with them for very long. For my next survivability tip, I already mentioned earlier the gearing that me and the healer are wearing. It's Arcasis and Drake's Rush for me, and the healer is also wearing Arcasis. Again, the ultimate regeneration is ridiculous as long as both of us are hitting potions when we're supposed to, which we're pretty good about. I forget to bash a lot, especially during hunt phase, but we still didn't have a problem generating enough ultimate. This allows us to have a very easy barrier rotation. Almost always somebody has a barrier. Pretty much most people have a barrier 2, maybe 3, or all 4 of us have a barrier. So we just call out when someone's going to hit a barrier, we do a countdown, that way we avoid multi-barriering when we don't need to. Now the healer during the hunt phase, pretty much his job is to spam regen throughout the entire time, and the DPS, their most important role is to roll dodge the fire dot that Balorg or the 4 Balorgs tend to put out. So usually it's telegraphed by Balorg saying something, but sometimes he does a silent one, and those are a little harder to avoid. So the regen is really nice just because it's a hot that helps prevent death from that fire dot there. Of course, the barrier rotation also is a big helper from that fire dot. It hits pretty hard for those 4 seconds. As far as grouping goes for the hunt phase, the 2 DPS and the healer should for the most part stick together, and as the tank I should probably be with them as well, but it's less of a big deal if I get separated from them because I tend to not need the heals because, again, I'm a tank. Now it's almost inevitable that in these 4 hunt phases, somebody is going to inadvertently get separated from the group. And that's why we often have all of the players slot their own self-heal. That way, if they do get separated and get hit by a fire dot or have wolves attacking them, they can at least heal themselves out of it. Or they might do something stupid like run over the land on accident when it's poisoned or be in the water too long. And again, if they're separated from the group, we just want to make sure that everybody has a self-heal slotted. So those are the 2 most important things. A race against time is a must for everybody, and then a self-heal just in case they get separated from the group. Another thing about hunt phase that I shouldn't need to say for seasoned groups, but that I'm going to say anyway, is that you should all pay attention to if you have the circle AoE underneath your feet, because that tells you that you have one of the Balorgs following you. So if you have the circle under your feet, that means you need to keep moving to avoid Balorg swipes, his heavy attacks, his charges, all of that stuff, and that also means that you better be the person that's standing on that trap to run them through it. We have had too many times where somebody wasn't paying attention to that circle underneath their feet, and they had no idea that they were the one that Balorg was tracking, and it took way too long. So again, just be extra careful that you're paying attention to those things. Now I want to go over a couple of things to do when you're not in hunt phase to keep that no death intact. Mostly it has to do with positioning of the tank. As the tank, you want to make sure that when he charges and puts fire behind him, you put it at a spot that is facing away from the DPS. This should be pretty obvious, but just in case you want to do that, and then oftentimes after he charges, now not every time, sometimes he does before, he does that big scream. And anytime you know he's about to do that big scream, call out to your group to get away from you, because they're probably not paying attention to when that happens because they're not the tank. So if you call that out, what I do is I say, get away from me, he's about to scream. And then they just simply scatter to make sure they're not in that big conal. Another thing that you may choose to do to make the hunt phase easier happens outside of the hunt phase, and that is you can have a DPS kind of deal with the stranglers as they come up. So as they come up, killing them before hunt phase can be helpful as you have less stranglers stunning you and pulling you back into all sorts of AoE issues during the hunt phase. Now, one thing that's nice about this hard mode, and that's not to say that I enjoy this hard mode because it's one of the most boring in my opinion, but one thing that is nice about it is that it is kind of built like Scalecaller Peaks hard mode, and like Lara Marsalok's hard mode, and I'm sure there's a couple others I'm forgetting. But it's built like that in that the fight doesn't actually get any harder throughout the entire fight. Like, it never changes. You do the same mechanics throughout the entire thing. So it's more a matter of focus and just not making stupid mistakes throughout the fight, because it doesn't actually get more challenging as the fight goes on. Now that has important implications for your group, because once everybody gets this down, meaning once you can survive one of the hunt phases, it should be a lot easier to survive all of the hunt phases. You just need to maintain your concentration throughout the rest of the fight. So, again, the consequence to that, of course, is that if somebody does die when you're going for Apex Predator during a hunt phase, you have every right to go over to their body and teabag them. In fact, all 3 of the people that are up should go over and teabag them. It no longer matters if the rest of the 3 of you die. It's important that you show the person who ruined it that they deserve the teabag action. And I cannot emphasize enough just how important that actually is. You see, when we did Apex Predator the first time and my video recording device kept glitching out, it was actually really easy. We pretty much came in and one-banged it. Now, we came in the day before just for a practice run, and that's when one person in our group said, hey, let's everyone put on Race Against Time, and this will be way easier. So the first time we actually put on Race Against Time, we did one-bang it. So then I said, oh, my recording device didn't work, so we're going to need to do this again so I can put up a video on YouTube. And the next time we came in here to get a video of the no death on the hard mode, it took us like 18 pulls, because people in our group just kept making stupid mistakes, and it was really, really annoying. So we decided to make it more fun by really, really giving them the business when they died. So we're about to kill the final Baylord Shade here, and then it's just a matter of finding Baylord, tap targeting him, and staying off the land, because a lot of people lose sight of the fact that, hey, you still need to stay off the land because it's going to get poisoned. So still do that mechanic at the end. So we're going to ulti-dump Baylord here, that last 11%. He's going to have to charge me, so I do roll dodge out of the way at last second, and he dies. So that's how you do it. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and leave a comment. And if you want to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe.